Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to the work session for the City Council for the City of Wildwood for Monday, April the 8th, 2024. Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll for the work?
Mayor Boland.
Here.
Councilmember Clark.
Here.
Councilmember Bartoni.
Here.
Councilmember Nyan.
Here.
Councilmember Farmer.
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Here.
Councilmember Rambo.
Here.
Councilmember Flasher. Councilmember Garitano. Councilmember Brost.
Here.
Councilmember Edens. Councilmember Ottenberg.
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Here.
Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
Councilmember Jaxi.
Here.
Councilmember Hopper.
Here.
Councilmember Galani.
Here.
All right. So first of all, I would like to just acknowledge and welcome our new arborist, Mr. Michael Walsh. He's with us this evening, and I can't tell you how much we are, how happy we are that you're on our team. And I think you're going to have a great time here. We have lots of arbor issues. So does anyone have anything they want to mention relative to him, Councilmember Dodwell?
I was hoping, could you just come up and just give us a little bit of your background and why you chose to come to work here? Yes, we have a podium policy
well,
here.
Thank you. First off, I'd like to say I'm really excited to be here working for the city of Wildwood. My background is in forestry, and I grew up in Chesterfield, graduated from Lafayette High School. So I've been around for a long time. I went to Mizzou, got a bachelor's and master's degree in forestry, became a certified arborist in 2008. I ran a nonprofit reforestation nursery for 10 years. And I've been trying to convince your superintendent of streets to create a arborist position for about 5 years. And that finally happened. So as soon as I got the notification, I applied, and here I am today.
What do you think the first challenges are going to be, or first things you're going to need to be working on?
Well, right now it's getting trees planted. We had about 200 trees we were wanting to plant last fall, and I'm planting them right now. That's what I'm doing every day, on top of trying to keep up with requests from residents and street department and street trees, right-of-way trees. So I'm kind of juggling a lot of things at once to start off. I feel like I've taken a little bit off everybody's plate that did forestry work and, the tree stuff for Wildwood. So kind of hit the ground running and kind of got thrown into the fire, I guess, but I'm having fun so far.
One last question, me being a biologist by education, how are you going to keep those trees wet all summer long so that they survive?
Well, trees like water. So, I want it to, if we don't get more than an inch of rain, all of these newly planted trees are going to need watering. So we've worked with one of our tree contractors to have a plan in place for contract watering if needed. But I've also requested through the Parks Department and Street Department that just get a small watering tank for one of the city trucks to water some of the more important high profile trees around City Hall, memorial trees, and the most recently planted street trees. Ideally, when we have the trees planted in as street trees, the resident wanted the tree, the resident is agreeing to water the tree, but that doesn't always happen. So, I want to drive around and make sure these trees make it. So, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, continuing on to information items, I believe we have 23. Before we go to action items, is there anything under information that any member of the council has a question about or which you would like to discuss? Councilor Dodwell.
Sorry, folks, I realize I'm being a pain tonight. I just wanted to applaud the city and White Buffalo. I have gotten nothing but kudos for that team who has called the deer. And everybody in at least Ward 4 appreciates the reduction in deer. I wish we could say they're all gone. I still had 10 in my backyard yesterday, but my house backs along a major highway for the deer migration from evening till morning. So really want to thank White Buffalo and the city staff for coordinating this event and doing what our citizens asked us to do, which was reduce the deer population in our neighborhoods.
Thank you. Anything else? Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention about the Celebrate Wildwood. I'd mentioned this before, just to remember that if possible, to have an area where people with disabled children who are bigger kids, where a place, maybe a tent or something, they can go in and change their children, and they can participate as well as children that are not physically disabled.
Ms. Clark, I will be glad to do that, and it'll be part of our program as we proceed forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else under information from any member of the council? All right, seeing none, that takes us to informational items. We have three. The first, Planning and Parks Committee, Center Avenue Utility Relocations. Mr. Vintage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, the Planning and Parks Committee was asked to consider two items at its most recent meeting. Those two items related to Center Avenue and specifically were as follows. The authorization to engage an outside firm to assist with the acquisition of necessary construction easements for the new roadway. Ultimately, as you know, the Department of Planning, with assistance from the Department of Administration and the Department of Public Works, obtained 21 quitclaim deeds for the conversion of the road from private to public purposes. That took a substantial amount of time. The road isn't getting any better, so the thought was we need easements for its construction and utility relocations. And so the hope was to engage a firm to assist with those acquisitions. We've done this with the Manchester Road shared use path that was to be built between Route 109 and Pond Road, and we are doing it now with the Old State Road shared use path. So the committee was supportive of that and sent forward a recommendation endorsing the engagement of a company based upon a bidding process. The second and last item related to Center Avenue. With the disturbance that is anticipated with the new road and the utility relocations, the department desired to engage a landscape architect to prepare a restoration plan and landscaping plan to offset that change. And so the committee was again supportive of that direction and authorized the recommendation, favorable recommendation, to be submitted to City Council for consideration. So tonight, the department is respectfully requesting via the committee's action that these two items be approved and that the department then can proceed forward with their development. Thank you.
And specifically, Mr. Vintage, which items, again, for the purposes of a motion?
The authorization to engage an outside firm for assistance in obtaining easements for the reconstruction of Center Avenue, and then the authorization to engage a landscape architect to prepare a restoration plan, landscape plan.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Vintage or a motion? Councilmember Farmer,
I'll make the motion.
to proceed as recommended with the two items, the engagement of the outside firm and a landscape architect.
Yes, sir.
Okay, is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Bartoni. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion on the motion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Don't go too far. Historic Preservation Commission, Mr. Vintage, Essen Log Cabin.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor and members of City Council, the Historic Preservation Commission has spent for the better part of this year reviewing the architectural drawings for the reassembly of the Essen Log Cabin at Village Green. Ultimately, at its last meeting, the end of March, those drawings were at a stage where the Historic Preservation Commission only had a few remaining comments, and those comments were not substantive in nature. Important from the building code perspective, but not in terms of the aesthetic, the appearance, or function of the log cabin. Therefore, tonight, the Historic Preservation Commission is presenting those architectural drawings for consideration by the City Council, and if supportive, an endorsement to proceed forward with their completion. And then once completed, we will go out to bid and hopefully find a contractor at a reasonable price so we can actually rebuild the cabin and complete this process that started many, many years ago. Thank you.
Having been through that, I wish you all the best with that endeavor.
Thank you.
What motion exactly are you looking for from the council?
Approval of the architectural drawings as submitted.
Okay. Are there any questions, or would someone like to make a motion to that effect? Councilmember Nyan?
I would like to make a motion that those drawings are accepted.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilmember Ottenberg. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, we have one other
Mr.
item.
Mr. Mayor,
Are
do
you-
you have any suggestions, since you've done this in terms of contractors or process? We'll be all ears. Thank you.
Mhm. Okay. Why don't we, without objection, the council rearrange the agenda, since the only other action item we have is an executive session to allow the two receipt files to be presented so that Mr. Vintage, if he needs to be doing other stuff, he can do that for preparation for the meeting or what have you, as opposed to waiting for us to come back in. Is there any objection to altering the agenda as indicated? All right, excellent. Then, Mr. Vintage, the first receipt and file, St. Louis County's PC 39-94, the Grover Company.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. At the recent Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, the members had asked that the restoration plan for this particular site be presented once completed. The restoration plan was submitted by the owners of the Pet Cafe for that consideration. Prior to submitting that restoration plan to the Planning and Zoning Commission, the department presented it to a consulting landscape architect for opinion. The opinion of the landscape architect was that a great deal of mature woodland had been removed and the damage was substantial. The recommendation of the landscape architect was approximately 20 trees of a certain size and species would be needed. Based upon another restoration plan recently developed by the department in a similar circumstance, that restoration plan could easily exceed $20,000. The department felt that that amount of cost on a small business that's been closed while remodeling may be too extreme. The department brought forward a recommendation to the commission which supported a change. That change, for all intents and purposes, would reduce the size of the trees from 2 and 2.5 inch caliber to 1 and 1.5 inch caliber, and allow a stage planting, meaning some in the spring, some in the fall, to allow them to basically defer the cost, the total cost, over 2 payments versus 1. There are a couple of other items. For all intents and purposes, the Planning and Zoning Commission endorsed this approach to the restoration plan, and it is for receipt and filing tonight by the City Council. And if there are any questions, the department would be glad to try to answer them. Thank you.
Are there any questions for Mr. Vintage or any comments relative to this first item for receipt and file? Well, Councilmember McCutcheon?
Yeah, I understand your rationale, but I'm very disappointed that we aren't following our tree conservation ordinance to the T. But I understand what you're saying.
Yes, it's the proverbial rock and hard place. If you do one thing, I'd be concerned we lose a business, do another, and obviously everybody that we have required to meet the standards of our restoration requirements. We've not done them justice either. So tough situation, but I think the commission did a very good job kind of balancing it.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, I agree with Deb overall, but my observation was lots of times, depending on the techniques, the actual process used to plant trees, 1.5 inch caliper in 5 years' time are going to be larger and healthier than the 2.5-inch caliper if we do it right. And so I was hoping to suggest that maybe our brand new arborist can help them with that and, kind of make something good out of something bad.
Well, in the proverbial, even a blind squirrel can find a nut. I asked our arborist to meet with the owners of the business. Mr. Walsh has already been out and met with Ms. Meckler. They've had a good conversation. Mr. Walsh is going to provide some recommendations on types of trees, and he's even volunteered to be out there when they're planted to ensure they're done correctly.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Benich, I have a question. I can't recall from whether we actually even discussed this at the commission level, but is there anything in what the commission did relative to this particular property that would prohibit the city from, if the plan that's been approved does not appear to be satisfactory in 2 or 3, 4 years, to come back to the commission and modify that approach?
I believe so, Mr. Mayor. The telltale signs of an ineffective restoration plan is we'll end up seeing erosion scars, loss of topsoil, those things. And there's codes already that allow us to address that. And we address that by adding more trees, addressing the turf if it's not the appropriate type, et cetera. So I think there is an approach that exists out there, and we'll certainly keep an eye on it from the perspective that we want it to be successful for them. And I think the more eyes on it, the better.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions for Councilmember Dodwell?
Just real quickly, Joe, are you going to have them wrap the trees so that the deer that are coming up from behind them aren't going to chew down? I agree with Councilmember Rambo that the smaller caliper trees do have a little bit more success than the larger caliper, but they're also mighty sweet for a deer.
Yes, and most recently on the other restoration plan, that was a condition of that particular action that is in municipal court and was recommended by the departments that it doesn't, we do all this work, we get them in place, and within months, they're all battered and bruised, so to speak, because the deer have taken advantage of them. So yes, it's going to be a component.
Thank
You're
you.
welcome.
Any other questions for Mr. Benich or any comments? Seeing none. All right, next, Mr. Benich's update on the reoccupancy permit program.
Well, just again, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, members of City Council, as you know, the Planning and Zoning Commission kind of started the ball rolling with this residential reoccupancy permit program discussion. Ultimately, the Planning and Zoning Commission recommended that we do it for any type of rental property. And so this past Monday, they were given an update, and that update was just included in tonight's packet as a receipt and file. So if there are any questions, we'd be glad to answer them. And I just would note, we are in the process of scheduling a second public input session. We hope to have that either at the end of April or that first week in May.
Thank you. Any comments or questions relative to this item?
Thank you again.
All right, Councilmember Clark.
Yep, I just noticed
You're
that.
on my periphery.
But I just noticed on this that, we'd made a lot of changes, but on the second paragraph here, it still says and municipal occupancy.
Pass that on to Pato, who's been our graphic expert. So thank you for the comment and make sure it's corrected.
Anything else? All right, so that takes us to the last item for the work session, which is the executive session. Per Missouri law, we will need a motion with to go into executive session with a roll call vote. Would someone like to make a motion to go into executive session? Motion is made by Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Clark. Is there any discussion on the motion to go into executive session? Seeing no discussion, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll of the council on the motion.
Councilmember Clark,
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni.
Yes.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano, Councilmember Brost,
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg,
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell,
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall,
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi,
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper,
Yes.
Councilmember Galani.
All right, so we're going to go into executive session and then we will come back and adjourn the work session. Thank you.
Ms. Edens, this is Travis. You're coming in upside down on your video on our end.
Yeah, I just got home, and I don't know how to fix this. I'm on a borrowed laptop.
I don't know how to either.
Mine
maybe
isn't working. No.
can you put,
Mhm. So
well,
when I,
and keep in mind we're recording and streaming on YouTube, so
oh, lovely. Hello. So I was under,
did you under the video icon, start video, stop video, the up arrow, there should be some options there that may help you.
okay.
Like, or you can,
I've never had this happen before. I've been looking under video settings
okay.
and it's got mirror my video in HD. If I can possibly get on my own laptop, this is quite comical. It's having battery issues and wouldn't turn on. I know the settings in there better, and this is bizarre. I don't see anything.
Did you click the three dots on your video box?
It's
And
got
look there as well. There's not much there on my end.
nope, I can be an avatar, which sounds even weirder.
Mhm.
And it was supposed to give me a video preview before the video started, and it didn't do that
It
either.
didn't do that.
So let me try to get in on a different laptop and see
Okay,
if
I'll
this
keep an eye
works.
out for you.
Okay, thank you. And if
You're
not,
welcome.
I'll just vote upside down.
Okay. Good luck. I'll keep an eye out for
It
you.
was a long day. I think I think it worked now.
All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting for the City Council for the City of Wildwood for Monday, April the 8th, 2024. Ms. Elders, would you please call the roll?
Jim, we never exited work session.
You're right, thank you. So we're back into the remainder of our work session, which all we have left is an adjournment. Would someone like to make a motion to adjourn the work session made by Councilmember Farmer, second by Councilmember McCutcheon? Non-debatable motion. All in favor of the motion to adjourn the work session, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned. All right, now into the main meeting. Thank you for being with us this evening. I'd like to call that meeting to order for the 8th of April for the City Council, City of Wildwood. Ms. Eldridge, would you please call the roll?
Mayor Boland,
Here?
Councilmember Clark. Here. Councilmember Bartoni.
Here.
Councilmember Nian.
Here.
Councilmember Farmer.
Here.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Here.
Councilmember Rainbow.
Here.
Councilmember Flasher. Councilmember Garitano.
Here.
Councilmember Brost.
Here.
Councilmember Edens.
Here.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Here.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Here.
Councilmember Marshall.
Present.
Councilmember Jaxi.
Here.
Councilmember Hopper.
Here.
Councilmember Galani.
Here.
All right, thank you. And for those of you that are with us this evening in the chambers, and if it's comfortably able for you, if you would please join us to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice. All right, thank you. Minutes are on the consent agenda. That takes us to public participation. I just want to mention a few things about that before we begin. Anyone who wishes to speak must indicate they would like to do that by completing a card and providing it to our city clerk, who is seated to the left of the podium. When your name is called, please state your name and ward. To ensure that all who wish to speak have the opportunity to do so, there is a 5-minute time limitation, and I will let you know when the time limit is reached. If you have any questions for us, please mention that during your remarks and identify the official you would like to respond. That official will make note of it, and at the conclusion of public participation, any official who chooses to respond will have 3 minutes to do so as to all questions directed to that official. The official may choose to respond to your questions after tonight's meeting, and we may also post any responses on the City Council page of our website. And finally, please be respectful to others in making your remarks. This means that interrupting others and using profane and abusive language are prohibited. And I want to thank everyone in advance for following these. First speaker card, please.
Nicholas Miller.
Right up here at the podium, sir.
So thank you for letting me speak. So I'm Nick Miller, and I'm one of the owners of Bloom Lawn and Lights.
Could you give
And
us your address or your ward if you live in Wildwood, please?
Yes, I believe I'm currently in 5, but I'm building a house in 1.
Okay.
All right. So and my current address is 33 Hickory Valley Court. So but I'm one of the owners of Bloom, and we've got a lot of Wildwood clients. So this is the ordinance pertaining to lighting is something that we're really passionate about. And so I know that you guys came up with an amended option. And so this might be a moot point, but I just wanted to convey some of the concerns of the unamended lighting option. And the first one is the warm white light with the 3000 Kelvin. As a result, what you could do is have red and orange and warm white, but no bluish or green, because on the Kelvin scale, the orange, all the warm colors would fall underneath it. So, all red lights in the backyard, I don't know if that's preferable over, bluish white. The other thing is, I don't think that particular ordinance addresses the permanent lighting trend adequately. People can control the color on their phone, and I'm not saying it shouldn't be controlled on some level to prevent neighbors from being a nuisance, but there needs to be some more work to that ordinance to do it right. And then the other thing is the 45 days is pretty restrictive when you have a family that, they might turn their lights on November 10th. And, 25% of our 800 Wildwood clients will probably start turning their lights on November 10th. But if they want to go to the Epiphany, which is later in January, they couldn't do that without being, against the ordinance. So that's all I can think of right now. But thank you for letting me talk. And I hope you go with option B, where it would just be the multifamily units and leave all the single family people out of it. So thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please.
Lisa Johnson.
Hello, I'm Lisa Johnson. I'm an attorney with Amundsen Davis. My address is 120 South Central in Clayton. I'm here to speak on behalf of Latitude N38, who owns property adjacent to the city property that's the subject of Bill number 2682 that's before you this evening. We just wanted to explain a few things about the property and make the council aware of it. My client is developing the property or is attempting to develop their property, which is just west of the city property. That's the subject of Village Green, and it's south of Crestview Drive. The plans that are being approved for the bid this evening in Bill 2682 include Crestview Drive, or include a walkway, a portion of Crestview Drive. The second section is actually it's a private drive that is subject to an easement at book 4699, page 119. It's a private drive that is owned by all of the owners adjacent to or fronting on Crestview Drive. And the permission of those owners will be required for any use of Crestview Drive that is not strictly private ingress and egress. Private ingress and egress use of that driveway. The developer is in their project, which is, it was not recommended by planning and zoning in December of last year. It is a pending, it's on a pending appeal, and it will be heard by the city council in May of this year. That's when it's currently scheduled. And that plan proposes using up to 15% of their property, which includes up to Crestview Drive, to support that access way along that drive. There is the development work that the city has done in pursuit of the Village Green project has already used a portion of Crestview Drive. And we just want to make it really clear that the easement should be reviewed. The use of that easement needs to be looked at so that the city is appropriately using that drive for private use and not for public use. Because if it is for public use, which it seems that it would be based on the plans, the cooperation of those owners would be necessary. All I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please.
William Levinson.
He's taking a pass. Next speaker card, please.
Chuck Pidcock.
Good evening. I'm a resident of Ward 5, and in reviewing ordinance 2869 that you all have created, just thought of a few interesting questions that come up. The fourth why-as and wherefore listed is states that and during your research of the regulations in this regard, it was discovered that few communities have undertaken such a comprehensive effort. Well, think a minute, why not? This is almost a totally unenforceable situation. There are over 13,000 home sites in Wildwood, which is a bedroom community. How are you going to measure or enforce compliance if only half of the houses have? You're looking at 7,000 to 8,000 homes. You don't have enough police officers to cover that. The lighting, I don't have any argument with all the measurements and so forth. That's all right. But item 9 under the section 2 states non-functional or poorly installed luminaires found to be in violation of the requirements of this section shall be a violation of this section. I can't believe a lawyer wrote it or read it. That's the section 5 says this, the ordinance shall be in full force and take effect from the time it's signed. What are the penalties for noncompliance? It doesn't state anything at all about that, nor fines. And does this section mean that the lighting requirements and so forth installations currently in existence are okay? Is it grandfathered? Poorly written. And finally, if you look outside after dark, as I said, this is a bedroom community. Just go outside your door at 10 o'clock at night. Look east. All you see is a white pole. There's no way, unless you can control Ellisville, Baldwin, Manchester, you're going to have it. Black night, black and dark night is a thing of the past. It's worldwide. I've traveled enough to know and seen it from the air. It's the only place you can get it anymore is out over the Atlantic Ocean and just looking up in the sky. There's a lot of stars out there, but you can't see it. That's life. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please.
Niall Stevens.
Excuse me, Niall Stevens, Ward 8. I'm a recently elected delegate for the Republican Party, and I'm going to the Republican Party National Convention in July to represent Congressional District 2. It's just part of Wildwood. Also, I'm a GOP committeeman candidate for the April or the August 6th ballot. And in those roles, I talk to a lot of voters. I talk to a lot of conservative voters. And I have to tell you, anytime that they hear something about over-regulation, especially when it comes to Christmas lights and things like this, which is why some of the people came to speak here tonight, every time across the board, everybody says, can you please just stop and stop the regulations, stop the over-regulation of people's properties. So just came to tell you to please table that discussion, and also came to say congratulations to the recently elected Ward 8 representatives, Mr. Galani and Mr. Garitano as our next mayor. I just want to say congratulations on winning those elections, and we hope that you serve us well for the next few years. So thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker card, please. Okay, thanks to everyone who came this evening to speak. We appreciate it. Is there anyone on Zoom? Okay. All right, so that will end public participation. That takes us to a couple of mayor's announcements. The first is, so Wildwood is a tree city, and as part of that, every year we have a proclamation that we are required to do, and it's that time of the year. So if you'll bear with me just for a minute, I'm going to read this. Whereas trees provide many benefits, including reductions in heating and cooling costs, purification of the air we breathe, production of oxygen to offset harmful greenhouse gases, and provision of habitat for a wide variety of wildlife. Whereas the city of Wildwood has adopted Ordinance 2286 requiring protection and restoration of the city's largest grand trees in residential, commercial, and industrial developments. And whereas the city has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation for 14 consecutive years. And we desire to continue that. Now, therefore, it is hereby proclaimed that Friday, April 26, 2024 shall be Arbor Day in the city of Wildwood, Missouri. Next, we have recognition that we need to do to the Rockwood School District. And we have a couple of representatives with us this evening. If you would mind meeting me right over here to the left, I would appreciate it. Okay, so the Rockwood School District means an incredible amount to our city. In fact, that's why a lot of people, as you know, moved to the city of Wildwood. And we have the principal from Lafayette and the superintendent from Rockwood School District who are with us this evening. And the reason they're with us this evening is because the school district, Lafayette High School in particular, received a very important, prestigious award in 2024. This year, it was named a state level school of character. And just to show you how significant that is, it was among 87 schools that received it in the nation, and only 15 in Missouri. I won't ask you how many there are in Missouri, but it's a large number. And this is the second time actually that Lafayette has obtained this award. So we're honored to have representatives, as I mentioned, from the school district with us this evening. Would either of you like to say something about this and how you got it and why it's such a big deal to you?
Hi, I'm Karen Calcaterra. I'm the principal at Lafayette High School, and I appreciate you celebrating with us and acknowledging our accomplishment. As you know, character is paramount to us in the work that we do, and we have a strong community at Lafayette High School, which resides in Wildwood, and it's important to us not only to have quality education programs, but probably more importantly, to turn out some really great kids. And so it is important to us, and we will continue the great work, and I appreciate you celebrating with us.
Absolutely.
Give a superintendent a microphone, it's dangerous, but all you have to do is spend 5 to 10 minutes in the hallways at Lafayette High School, and you understand why it's been recognized. It continues to be recognized for the outstanding things that it does on a daily basis to meet the needs of students and to help prepare them for their futures. And so we're just honored to be here and really do appreciate the recognition.
Well, I want to thank you for being part of our community because again, you're an integral part of it. And thanks also for all the things that each of you do individually, day in and day out in your positions. And thanks for being with us this evening. So how about a round of applause for the Rockwood School District, Lafayette High School. All right, we have no public hearings this evening. That takes us to legislation. We have 6 bills that are up for second reading. Bill 2862 relates to an agreement with Bombshell Construction Services for the development. I'm sorry, Councilmember Dodwell.
Mayor Boland, I was going to ask if it would be possible for us to move ordinance number 2869 up to the front of the agenda, since we have several people, quite a few people here this evening wanting to know what our next steps are going to be on that particular issue.
We could do that, and I would actually have suggested that myself if I didn't think that we were going to be there just about as quickly without doing that. If you'll just bear with me for just 1 minute here.
Okay, thank you.
All right, you're welcome. Thank you for the suggestion. All right, so Bill 2862, the first of our second bills relates to an agreement with Bombshell Construction Services for the development of our Village Green, concerns Ward 8. Next is Bill 2864. It concerns an agreement with CB Engineering for capital improvement projects within the city. It concerns all wards. Bill 2865 is another agreement with Precision Concrete Cutting for sidewalk repairs in Ward 8. Next is Bill 2866, which relates to new parking regulations on various streets near Lafayette High School. That affects Ward 5. And finally, before we get to Bill 2869, Bill 2868, which relates to our new marijuana land use regulations that also affects all wards. Would there be any objection by any member of the council if these 5 bills were handled en masse for second reading? Okay, seeing no objection, Ms. Eldridge, would you please read bills 2862, 2864, 2865, 2866, and 2868? Is there a motion for the second reading made by Councilmember Farmer? Thank you, Ms. Eldridge. Is there a second to the motion made by Councilmember Hopper? All in favor of the motion for second reading, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, now, Ms. Eldridge, would you please read the bills?
Bill number 2862, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to enter into a city contractor agreement with Bombshell Construction Services LLC for the development of Village Green Phase 1 as indicated in the bid documents and specifications, second reading. Bill number 2864, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city consultant agreement with CB Engineering Incorporated, doing business as Cochran, for construction inspection and materials testing services for capital improvement projects for the city, second reading. Bill number 2865, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the mayor to negotiate and execute a city contractor agreement with Precision Concrete Cutting LLC for sidewalk repairs on residential streets, second reading. Bill number 2866, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending chapter 390, traffic schedule 9, parking restrictions of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Wildwood, Missouri by enacting new parking regulations on various residential streets near Lafayette High School and authorizing and directing the city traffic engineer to erect appropriate signage reflecting such parking regulations, second reading. Bill number 2868, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending sections of chapter 415 of the Code of Ordinances of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, providing for marijuana land use regulations, second reading.
Thank you. Mr. Benich, do you have anything you would like to mention relative to bills 2862 or 2868?
No, sir. Both were presented either at public hearing or during work session at a previous meeting. So if there are any questions regarding the two bills, the department would be glad to answer them at this time.
Are there any questions for Mr. Benich relative to those two bills or any comments from any member of the council?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Benich. Mr. Brown, do you have anything further you'd like to mention relative to bills 2864, 2865, or 2866?
Thank you, Mayor. I do not. Thank you. But I'm available for any questions.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Brown. Are there any questions for Mr. Brown by any member of the council, or any comments on those three bills, sorry. All right. Seeing none. Anything else from any member of the council on the five bills? All right, seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of bills 2862, 2864, 2865, 2866, and 2868.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni.
Yes.
Councilmember Nyan.
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer.
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon.
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yes.
Councilmember Garitano.
Yes.
Councilmember Bros.
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall.
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi.
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper.
Yes.
Councilmember Galani.
Yes.
All right, thank you. The bills have passed and one sign will be in effect. That takes us to bill 2869. We need to get this on the floor before we can do anything with it. So is there a motion for second reading of bill 2869? We have to get on the floor to amend it if we're going to do that. Councilmember Clark. Okay, is there a second? Councilmember Farmer. All in favor of the motion for second reading, please say aye.
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 Okay, so now the bill is before the council and can be amended. And just by way of background, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry, you're right. Any abstentions to the motion or objections to the motion for second reading? Two joining us remotely. All right, seeing none. Okay, so it's unanimous. So as you know, council members, and I indicated this in my mayor's report on Friday, the impetus for this bill was limited strictly to multifamily housing. And so as a result of that, I had recommended to the council, and you have the amendment in front of you, that the bill be amended to address only that, apartment buildings specifically. And so at this point, if the council, or if you're in agreement with that, now would be the time to make a motion to amend it to that effect. I don't think you need to read it.
For a second reading, we do need to
Okay,
read
go ahead and
that
read the
second
bill.
time.
Sorry.
Bill number 2869, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, amending section 415.030 and section 415.450 of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Wildwood, Missouri, providing for aesthetic outdoor lighting regulations, second reading.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Eldridge. So the amendment, as I mentioned, is before you. It's been posted with the agenda. Now would be the time if anyone is interested in making that amendment to do so. Councilmember Clark.
I will make that amendment for 2869A amended bill to cover only the multifamily apartment buildings.
Okay, so we have a motion to amend Bill 2869 as indicated in the amendment that's been provided to you. Is there a second to the motion to amend the bill as indicated? Seconded by Councilmember Brost. Is there any discussion on the amendment before we get to the bill? Councilmember Dotwell.
In reviewing that particular bill, and hearing from many residents this evening, do you think this would be better served, the citizens would be better served by having this go back to Admin Public Works or whichever committee it came from, to rather than just amend a bill, to fix a bill going forward?
If you're asking me, my view is that this situation, which gave rise to it, and it seems to be getting worse, it would be better off dealt with now. If the council wants to address other aspects of the bill on a citywide basis, it could make a motion to do exactly what you're talking about. But relative to this limited issue, my recommendation would be to handle it now before it gets worse. Councilmember Hopper.
Since there was a motion and a second for the amendment, do we need to clear that up before we have this discussion on the larger part of the bill, or should we?
Technically, yes, but I was just allowing the council member to have a little leeway there. Thank you for that parliamentary note. Councilmember Clark.
Yeah, the reason that I would amend this is because as I understand, the proposal for this fits with this amendment. The proposal for the bill in the first place was for this, limited to the multifamily. And we're kind of going back to what the proposal was in the first place.
Correct. Thank you. Councilmember Farmer.
So I represent a multifamily development in Ward 4, and I had a lot of thoughts about this bill last month when we talked about it. And my suggestion and hope was that we would have some time from the city to work through some of these issues. And while I guess part of that was to revert back to this original idea that it deal with multifamily homes, a lot of the other issues that were discussed even this evening still persist. I am really not sure how we would enforce this. To my knowledge, we don't have a nighttime code enforcement person that's going to check on this. I don't know how the clock starts as to how long 45 days is. I'm appreciative of all the work that our code enforcement guys do and Mr. Vunich does when we have issues that I bring to their attention, but I can tell you the clock usually starts when a complaint is made, not like it's been there for a month. Please come out and fix this in the next 15 days. The other side of this is I don't even understand who the code violation would go to. Is it to the renter? Is it to the people that own the building? Because I get plenty of questions and some complaints about the apartment building we have at the beginning of our neighborhood. Not a single one has been about lights. It's about all kinds of other things, graffiti, a broken down car or whatever it may be. So I don't know where this very large push for lights is. I'm not seeing it. And as I think one of like 6 people up here that have multifamily units in their wards, I haven't heard of this. So personally, I'm not a fan of this bill. I think it has a whole lot of work to do. I get the general point of it, but it needs a lot of work. So if we were to decide on this evening, my vote's going to be no. I guess I could see sending it to a committee to work through it, but I think it's going to take a lot of time to get it to where it needs to be to make sense.
So City Attorney Young, relative to Councilor Farmer's question about who the citation or what have you would be issued to in this instance, who would that be?
It'd be very likely either the owner of the building or the manager of the building.
So, I mean, I know at least the condos over in Ward 8, they have a condo agreement or whatever, where they're not allowed to put Christmas lights out. Do these other buildings that exist in Wildwood? I don't know. I don't think that Rockwood Springs or the other ones do. Do we know as a city if they have any of that stuff already?
I don't know.
So I would suggest that we figure out what these buildings have in place right now before we start legislating things that, again, we don't have any ability to control. We had Rockwood Springs had a pretty bad fire. I don't know what it was, 18 months ago or something, and sat wide open all winter long. I had people calling me, when are they going to board this up? They didn't until it got fixed. So I don't think they're going to rush out and take string lights down. And it's not a thing that's going to happen.
So I would say, with all due respect on that, I mean, we have a lot of ordinances, tree preservation, grand trees, parking, that we somehow managed to get done with enforcement. I mean, and I don't think this would be any different, but in any event, there are actually a couple of pictures I think would be good for the public and those watching to see as to the specific situation that an example of it that we're trying to deal with here. And this is, I think, representative, and I don't think it's why people move to the city of Wildwood. Councilmember Rambo.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Katie and Joe. For the most part, this is not quite ready for prime time. That's our job, is to take a pretty good cut at something and keep working on it until we get it right. We need to fix particularly some of the problems that Joe mentioned, but I want to reassure everyone, everybody on this dais has beloved children in their lives, hopefully lots of them. None of us would consider depriving kids of Christmas lights. That was never the purpose of this bill. That was not the intention. I would vote against such a bill, and I think we all would do that. And so we need to stop conflating something like that picture that's probably August or something like that with Christmas lights around the holidays. And so if we send this back, we would take a look at making sure that we're protecting Christmas lights, holiday lights specifically. So that's really all I had to say.
Okay, thank you. Councilor Bartoni.
Thank you. I'm kind of leaning in the same direction as Joe is over here. I mean, this has nothing to do with holiday lights, and it never did. And appreciate everybody's understanding, knowing now that that has been made very clear. But I think this is a little bit more overreach than we need as a council. And
so discussion is just on the amendment for multifamily.
Okay, so with the
then we'll go back to the main bill.
With the multifamily part, would a villa be considered a multifamily?
City Attorney Young.
No.
So even though there's two separate families in one building,
That is a two-family residential dwelling. It is different than a multifamily dwelling.
okay. Well, thank you for that clarification, and I'll hold the other comments for later then.
Okay. Councilmember Marshall.
Yeah, I was just questioning I guess it's the fifth whereas. We don't usually write policies or ordinances for the city to regulate the use of string lights in the highest density residential area of the city. I mean, that's just kind of saying that only that particular area, so the lighting would not be enforced then in any other parts of the city. Is that correct? So if I lived in Ward 1, 6, or any of those, the lighting would not be part of it.
City Attorney Young.
The high density is the multifamily. That's the intent.
Not high density zoning areas, but high density, the actual development itself, the building, I think is what he's saying that refers to. Is that correct?
Well, it's a whereas clause, so it does not become law, but the intention there is that multifamily is the highest density residential use that the city has.
For 4 people or living in an apartment unit, that would not really be included then as high density, or is there a number to determine that?
It's not necessarily a black and white number. It is number of units per acre, and apartments have the highest allowance for units per acre. Or condos, multifamily does.
Okay, thank you.
And just for your information, as you know, we have another very large apartment complex that's coming to town center, directly in our town center very soon. Councilmember Edens.
Yes, two questions. So the first being that if we were to make this amendment, because it's an addition of language, so the main motion language still applies except for the clarification. So I just want to make sure I understand this. Does that mean that the additional language still applies to all types of homes? So for example, if someone has an ultra bright light on the side of their house and they're shining it into their neighbor's window, which happens to be detached, are we able to enforce that or no? Because that's considered aesthetic, even though it's not string lights. And aesthetic only applies to multifamily.
So if the motion that's on the floor as to amending the bill passes, it would relate only to the limited instance indicated in the amendment as to multifamily, and therefore it would not apply to the scenarios you're describing.
Okay. I understand where you're coming from. I know that I've had some issues in a couple of neighborhoods where the way the houses are oriented, like specifically in Windcrest, like that has been a complaint with one neighbor's light shining in through the bedroom. And they're using like a really high light because the neighbors don't like each other, but that would leave no code on the books for any level of enforcement on that. And yes, it would be nice if they could all get along. But that does kind of leave them out. And my other question is, as related to the amendment, the concerns brought by Mr. Miller about the colors of the lights. Is that still an issue even with the amendment? Because it sounds like the definition of the Kelvin is still in the main motion. So if someone puts up string lights in an apartment, are they limited on their color swatch essentially for holiday?
City Attorney Young.
If the amendment is addressed, that issue becomes moot.
Okay.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yes, this part of this is for City Attorney Young. If we vote in favor of the amendment, we're voting in favor of the document 2869A that you have fully vetted and believe will work on its own to solve this acute problem that we're having. Is that the case?
It is in proper legal form, yes.
Okay, so how can we approve this, help to solve the chronic issue, and send the lighting issues in general back to committee for clarification so that we know what the penalties are, to address Lauren's concern about Klieg lights in someone's bedroom and those kinds of things? How can we best do that?
So if the council wants to address the acute problem that we have now, it would pass this amendment to the bill, and then we would go back to the main bill as amended, and that would be up for final passage. And then if someone wanted to make a motion to ask our Planning and Parks Committee to look at the broader aspects of this with respect to single family residential, the scenarios that Councilmember Edens and others have brought up, that would be the tool to do that.
So we would be approving 2869A, and then we would send 2869 back to, or send the issue back, and 2869 would be dead at that point?
You get there, it's a different way of saying it. It's not really sending it back. It's just asking, because the bill will be passed by that point. So there's nothing to send back technically.
But the bill that we're passing is 2869A, period. That's the only document. Nothing on 2869 would be passed.
If the vote to amend passes, it becomes 2869.
Okay, right. Okay, good.
So then your motion would be, after the bill is voted on, to make a motion to ask presumably the Planning and Parks Committee to look at the broader issue of lighting in the city beyond this specific situation.
Okay, that's what I'd like to do when the time's right.
Councilmember Dodwell.
So what you just said is that if we pass the amendment, then this goes into effect. If we do not pass the amendment, and then we go back to the original ordinance, and we don't pass the original ordinance, we can take it back to committee and do our due diligence that should have been done originally on this particular document so that we clearly indicate what we're asking our residents to do, what we're asking our staff to do as far as enforcement. Correct?
If if the bill is amended and that doesn't pass, the council could refer the entire bill without back to, or to any committee, but presumably the Planning and Parks Committee. But that would also mean that the issue at hand with multifamily would not be addressed until some time down the road. Councilmember Farmer.
So if we pass the amended bill tonight, I mean, the picture, Travis, can you throw that picture back up? So this is Rockwood Springs. This is at the top, West Glen Farms. And let's say we pass this tonight. Does the clock start for 45 days today? And so in 45 days, we go in and start citing people, or what?
City Attorney Young.
It certainly can, yes, as soon as the bill is passed and approved.
Well, so it's that if we pass it tonight, it's approved, right?
Once the mayor signs it, yes.
Okay, so let's say we sign it tomorrow. So then the clock starts 45 days. That's the intention of the bill, right?
That's the way the bill reads, yes.
Okay, so in 45 days, if these lights are still there, I don't know if this is Joe, I don't know who would answer this. Then what?
Mr. Benich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Farmer, we would contact the property manager of the apartment complex and advise them that there are violations in association with aesthetic lighting at the development.
Okay, so once we do that, I'm just trying to get through the process because we do this a lot in committee meetings. You guys don't always get to hear this part. So we're gonna notify the apartment manager, and then how much time do they have to get into compliance with our ordinance? And if they don't, what happens?
Well, typically, the code sets certain timeframes. They can be as quick as 48 hours on up to 15 to 30 days. In this instance, I believe the city attorney has said we typically like to give at least 10 days.
Okay.
And that's just the kind of general rule of thumb, as I recall.
There's no legally mandated time frame, but the typical standard is 10 to 15 days.
Well, but I mean, if we're going to pass it, we should know what it is. So is it 10 days or is it 48 hours?
We could have 0 if we wanted to, but I'm just saying what typical practice is, because there is no mandate in terms of the notice, but.
Yeah, but I mean, this is our thing. So if we can say, I mean, I guess what I'm questioning is it 10 days? Is it 0 days? Is it 2 months? How long is it?
The ordinance does not say.
Okay, so we're going to pass an ordinance that we can't enforce with a timetable that we don't know on people that don't live there very long.
I think, if I may.
Actually, I'd like to respond to that respectfully. Do any of our ordinances, when we provide where we're going to have a speed limit or we're going to cite someone for cutting a tree, state how many days it is before code enforcement has to go give them a citation?
More often than not, no.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Benich.
Again, Mr. Farmer, I was giving you the range.
I get it.
For nuisance weeds, it's 5 days. The code states 5 days. We have to give them 5 days to correct the tall grass, or then we are able to enforce the code.
So then let's continue a different road with this then. Let's say that we give them the 10 days, whatever it is, doesn't matter, and they still don't have these lights. Then what happens?
Then summons is issued. And then the municipal court will attempt to gain compliance.
Okay. So just based on my experience with other issues, you know, this is a oftentimes several month progression of these things, right? When we're dealing with difficult code stuff.
There's due process, and everybody is allowed that due process. And more importantly, to at least the Department of Planning and the code enforcement arm, we want to be reasonable. People may have issues underway. The idea here is that once the notice is served, there is a clock ticking.
Sure.
And we expect that the compliance will be met. And 9 times out of 10, the compliance is met before the deadline. It's only in certain instances, and those are that 1 out of 10, where it has to be elevated to either another warning notice if the circumstances justify it, or the summons is issued and municipal court becomes involved.
So then, Mr. Young, I think this is for you, just so I can have some clarification. If I'm reading this bill right, it is for illuminated lights, right? Like turned on lights, or are these just string lights that are there?
Illuminated.
So if we have a picture like this and the picture comes into the city, how is the city going to determine that? Are they going out? Are you guys going to go out at night and look at this? Are we tracking the number of days? I just don't get it still.
Well, certainly the number of days is a little more of a difficult component, but there are ways to achieve that. The person that took the photographs that you saw tonight was me, and I did it after a meeting, and we have plenty of meetings, so I'm available at night.
Sure. I appreciate it. Look, I'm not saying I love the way the building looks. I drive past it every single night. So I get that there's some work that needs to be done. I'm just concerned that we have put the cart way before the horse on this thing. So
I think, relative to your question, which are very salient about enforcement and so forth, and given the sheer magnitude, which seems to be increasing, of the lights that are appearing at this particular development, I don't think it's realistic that, and I don't think any of us would think that it's realistic that precisely 45 days from today, if this passes, that those lights will be down. Number one. Number two, I think that we have a history as a city of, yes, we enforce our rules, but we do it in a reasonable way. And we have an outstanding team here that has a proven record of doing that, starting with our director of planning, our city attorney, our municipal prosecutor, our municipal judge. And I don't think I've heard many complaints about that. So thank you. And this ordinance, I don't think, is written any differently than our city attorney has written any number of ordinances that deal with very similar things, that have dates of time limits and when we start enforcing and so forth. And I don't think we've ever had any kind of an issue with it. Anyway, Councilor McCutcheon.
Yeah, can I ask a comparison question?
Sure.
Is that appropriate?
Sure.
Mr. Vunich, we have on our sign ordinance, we let businesses put signs out for X amount of days. So has that been enforced? And if so, how?
Yes, and a key component of the sign ordinance is any type of sign, whether it's a sandwich board sign that's put out for a special during, let's say, a lunchtime, or the signs that many of the institutional users like to place for special events at their locations. We require them to complete a form. And the form basically then gives us a date when the installation is going to occur. And then we provide the date that's mandated for its removal, whether it's 10 days or 15 days, et cetera. So the sign process is somewhat easier because there is a process to manage it.
And so if they don't remove their signs within the appropriate time, what happens?
Typically, they'll get a call or a visit from either the code enforcement officers, Melanie Ripito, or myself. Typically, we like to call and just advise the business you're beyond the limits, or you didn't get the appropriate authorization. You need to do that. If it's a habitual situation where we've been there multiple times, we'll send a warning notice immediately. And we typically then give the shortest time frame that we feel is reasonable. And that's typically about 5 days.
And is there a citation?
If they continue to display the sign, yes, then a summons is written.
And so how would that process compare to the process with the multifamily buildings with the lights?
Well, at this stage, there's nothing contemplated about a registration or authorization process. So again, it would just be a situation of doing the best we can to determine when the lights were illuminated and keeping track as best we can the length of time. But certainly the components of just maintenance and things along those lines, I'd like to think that we'll be able to address those regardless if further action is taken or not.
Thank you.
I would also just say, as a practical matter, I suspect being good neighbors, like I'm assuming they're going to be, that after the first phone call, you will see a drastic reduction in what we currently see at the multifamily developments. Without getting into what I think this is probably going to be, which is a lot of theoretical discussion. But good to have nevertheless. Councilmember Hopper. That is all that's on the floor. I've given a little latitude just because well, it's already held, so we probably won't have that discussion later. So, but to your point, is there any other discussion on the amendment, which is to limit it specifically to multifamily, the multifamily residences in the state or in the city? Councilor Garritano?
Yeah, I guess, I had concerns with the original bill, which I dissented, and looking at the bill here, I do feel that there's work to be done because of the number of days. I think the lighting is often associated with a holiday or some type of faith or religion, and I feel uncomfortable touching that topic the way it is written.
Are you speaking about the bill as a total or the amendment?
The amendment at this time.
Do you have a suggested change in the number of days or?
I don't at this time, but I think that's where we'd have to look because with 45 days.
They can actually request additional time.
Yeah, I just think that right now that's going to be the challenge that we would run into. Councilmember Farmer mentioned, I think, the additional work that the city would have to go through. And so that's where I feel the concern is with the current language.
Councilor Bartoni?
I think we've had some good discussion. We've had discussion like this in the past. And I think that there's just a lot of uncomfortableness with the way this is written right now. I know that being one of my very last votes, I would have difficulties supporting this. I think it's government overreach, but I will make a motion that we send this to the Planning and Parks Committee to revisit it and to see if we can kind of iron out some of these wrinkles.
And that's on the amendment?
That's on everything regarding this, the whole ball of wax.
So that's in order, I believe. Okay, so there's a motion to refer to, what is it?
I think Planning and Parks would be appropriate, but
is there a second to the motion made by Councilmember Dodwell? Any discussion? So now the discussion's on motion to refer. Is there any discussion on motion to refer? All right, seeing none. Let's do a roll call vote on the motion to refer.
Councilmember Bartoni?
Yes.
Councilmember Nian?
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer?
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon?
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo?
Yep.
Councilmember Garritano?
Yes.
Councilmember Brost?
Yes.
Councilmember Edens?
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg?
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell?
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall?
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi?
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper?
Yes.
Councilmember Galani?
Yes.
Councilmember Clark?
Yes.
Okay, so the bill is referred. That takes us to new business. We have Bill 2870, which relates to an adjustment of lots 4715, 4703 Chateau Lane. Bill 2871. Also an adjustment of lots relating to Rieger Farm lots 5 and 6. Bill 2872, and my apology, Bill 2870 affects Ward 6, Bill 2871 Rieger Farms Ward 1, and then Bill 2872, which affects Wards 1 and 8, that relates to appropriating $155,527 for neighborhood redeeming the outstanding neighborhood improvement and district bonds for town center sewage improvements. Would there be any objection for these bills to be read in mass for the first reading?
I don't have an objection. Can I just ask a question?
Sure.
Do we need 2872 read twice?
We're going to get to that.
Okay.
Is there any objection from any member of the council having these three bills read in mass? All right, seeing none, is there a motion for the first reading of the three bills? made by Councilmember Ottenberg, seconded by Councilmember Hopper. All in favor of the motion for first reading of the three bills in mass, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Ms. Eldridge, please read bills 2870, 2871, and 2872 for the first time.
Bill number 2870, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the adjustment of three legal lots of record, being lot 204 Fox Creek Valley, Plat 6, and tracts of land in sections 29 and 32, Township 44 North, Range 3 East, Plat Book 120, pages 4 and 5, located on the east and west sides of Chateau Lane, north of Model Realty Road, and to be hereafter known as 4715 and 4703 Chateau Lane, and 18815 Vixen Drive Boundary Adjustment Plat. First reading. Bill number 2871, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the adjustment of two legal lots of record, being Lot 5 of Rieger Farms Plat 1 and Lot 6 of Rieger Farms Plat 2, located in Section 33, Township 45 North, Range 3 East, City of Wildwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, located on the south side of Rieger Road, east of Wild Horse Creek Road, and to be hereafter known as Rieger Farms, Lots 5 and 6, Boundary Adjustment Plat. First reading. Bill number 2872, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, appropriating $155,527 for the redeeming of outstanding Neighborhood Improvement District Limited General Obligation refunding bonds, Town Center Sewerage Improvements Project Number 1, Series 2012 of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, and authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith. First reading.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Vinich, do you have anything you want to mention relative to bills 2870 or 2871?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, just kind of give a perspective to the city council and yourself as well. The first is the Chateau Lane Vixen Drive boundary adjustment. There are three parcels of ground. The area has a substantial amount of floodplain, and some of the adjustments, I believe, are reflective of the floodplain area. The boundary adjustment does not reduce any of the lots below the 3-acre minimum. And then the second being Rieger Farms. Rieger Farms is a recent large lot single-family subdivision approved by the city council. One of the first buyers would like to increase the size of their lot, and that buyer was fortunate to have the only vacant lot that hadn't been sold available. So the one lot increases approximately by 3 acres, and the other is reduced by 3 acres. And as you can see, the gentleman that is residing in the existing home has about 8 acres when it's all said and done. If there are any other questions, the department would be glad to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Vinich relative to those two items? Councilmember Clark?
Yeah, I don't know if this matters at all, but on the subdivision filing application, it's listed as Ward 7.
The developer or the owner fills those out. I'll get them to correct it. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, Mr. Lee, do you have anything you want to mention relative to Bill 2872?
Yes, the Department of Administration today would request 2 readings tonight. What we're looking at here is looking to pay off the bonds early. And when we pay off these bonds early with the 155, there will actually be a little bit left over in the piggy bank to be able to return to our residents in the NID, Neighborhood Improvement District. So this is just giving authorization to make that happen, and then to notify the trustees about paying it off and then returning those funds. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've had a request from the property owners to have second readings of Bill 2870 and 2871. And I believe Mr. Lee would like, as he indicated, to have a second reading of Bill 2872. We could also do that in mass if someone would like to make a motion to that effect. Councilmember Farmer moves to have them read a second time, seconded by Councilmember Hopper. This will require a supermajority 2/3 vote. We'll try by voice vote first to see where we go. All in favor of motion for second reading of the 3 bills, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Seeing none, we have the supermajority requirement met. Ms. Eldridge, please read the 3 bills a second time.
Bill number 2870, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the adjustment of 3 legal lots of record, being lot 204 Fox Creek Valley Plat 6 and tracts of land in sections 29 and 32, Township 44 North, Range 3 East, plat book 120, pages 4 and 5, located on the east and west sides of Chateau Lane, north of Model Realty Road, and to be hereafter known as 4715 and 4703 Chateau Lane in 18815 Vixen Drive Boundary Adjustment Plat, second reading. Bill number 2871, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, authorizing the adjustment of two legal lots of record, being Lot 5 of Rieger Farms, Plat 1, and Lot 6 of Rieger Farms, Plat 2, located in Section 33, Township 45 North, Range 3 East, City of Wildwood, St. Louis County, Missouri, located on the south side of Rieger Road, east of Wild Horse Creek Road, and to be hereafter known as Rieger Farms Lots 5 and 6 Boundary Adjustment Plat, second reading. Bill number 2872, an ordinance of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, appropriating $155,527 for the redeeming of outstanding neighborhood improvement district limited general obligation refunding bonds, Town Center Sewerage Improvements Project Number 1, Series 2012 of the city of Wildwood, Missouri, and authorizing certain other documents and actions in connection therewith, second reading.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on any of the three bills by any member of the council? All right, seeing none, Ms. Eldridge, please call the roll for final passage of bills 2870, 2871, and 2872.
Councilmember Nian,
Yes.
Councilmember Farmer,
Yes.
Councilmember McCutcheon,
Yes.
Councilmember Rambo.
Yes.
Councilmember Garetano.
Yes.
Councilmember Bros.
Yes.
Councilmember Edens.
Yes.
Councilmember Ottenberg.
Yes.
Councilmember Dodwell.
Yes.
Councilmember Marshall.
Yes.
Councilmember Jaxi.
Yes.
Councilmember Hopper.
Yes.
Councilmember Galani.
Yes.
Councilmember Clark.
Yes.
Councilmember Bartoni.
Yes.
All right, the three bills have passed and will be in effect once signed. We have no readings from any hearings this evening. We didn't have any hearings and we have no resolutions. That takes us to the consent agenda. The minutes are on the consent agenda as you, excuse me, as you can see, but if anyone wants those segregated to vote on separately, we can do that. Councilmember Clark.
Yes, I'd like those pulled out.
Okay, so we'll do that separately. Let's do that right now. You've got, without objection, we'll pull the minutes off the consent agenda. Anyone object to that? All right, so the minutes are before you from the March 11, 2024 meeting of the City Council work session and main meeting. If you have no changes or questions, we'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes as presented. Councilmember Clark?
Yes, I had a question and it's on page 6 of the minutes. We had there was a first, it was read for the first time. And then the second time these bills were read, it also says they were read for the first time. I'm trying to find that again. I read that earlier, so now I'm looking for it. Page 6. Were read for, oh, it's been changed, I guess. Since the first time I read it.
So do you want to make a motion to approve the minutes?
I want to make the motion to approve then, yeah.
We have a
it's
motion to
been-
approve the minutes, seconded by Councilmember Ottenberg. Any discussion on the motion to approve the minutes? Seeing none, all in favor of the motion to approve the minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Abstain.
Councilmember Brost, Councilmember Hopper, Councilmember Galani abstained. Any other abstentions? All right, that takes us to the consent agenda that remains. We have approval of expenditures, 3 mayoral appointments, Debbie Lynn from Ward 7 to the Wildwood Celebration Commission, Clifford Albers from Ward 8 to the Architectural Review Board as an alternate member, and Dan Roten reappointment from Ward 2 to the Historic Preservation Commission. That concludes the consent agenda. If everyone's good with that, I'd take a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented, made by Councilmember Galani, seconded by Councilmember Nian. Any discussion on the motion to approve the consent agenda? All right, seeing none, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Miscellaneous, Councilor McCutcheon.
Yes, we got notification that the Greenberg development is being put on hold. For those of you who've been around a while, that same development may be under a different name for many years. We think it's going to happen and then it gets put on hold again. So what I'd like to see on the agenda next council meeting is a discussion on the hard courts. We did all the work that we've already done in the community park before. We were ready to put the hard courts there. Then they were going to be moved over with the Greenberg development. So I'd like to see them put on the council agenda at the next city council meeting for discussion.
So that would be, if we do that, and this is just a point of information, would that be on the first meeting or the second? I think it'd be the second, wouldn't it? Because isn't the first just for old business, I believe?
Correct.
Okay, so if I were doing that agenda, Councilor McCutcheon?
June.
If I were doing, I'm sorry.
We do it in June.
Well, you can. I was just gonna say, it wouldn't be for me to, the decision for me to make, it would be for Councilor Mayor-elect Garetano to make, because it's on the second meeting agenda after he would be the mayor.
Okay.
Councilor Garetano.
Yeah, I think that would make sense. It would give the department an opportunity maybe to prepare an update because some of that information may already be outdated. So they might be able to at least freshen up the data that they have.
Mr. Benich.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With the permission of the Chair of the Planning and Parks Committee, he received a draft agenda today with that subject as one of the items for discussion by the committee. The committee will obviously meet before the next city council meeting, so we'll have a report for city council's consideration.
Thank you.
Anything else under miscellaneous before we go to adjournment? Councilor Bartoni.
So this is on a completely lighter fare, but for those of us who like to play golf, Larry, I know Mike does a little bit, but over this past weekend, golf does this thing called drive, chip and putt. And they were at the Augusta National this past weekend. And we had a young man named Caden Fair, I guess you pronounce his name, that participated. He's from here in Wildwood. This is a national event. This is a pretty big deal. And there was also a young girl from Eureka that participated also, and she won her age group. Larry pointed that out. She's 7 and 9 years old, but just wanted to recognize them too.
Thank you. Anything else under miscellaneous? All right, motion to adjourn. Councilmember Farmer, seconded by Councilmember Hopper. Non-debatable. All in favor of the motion to adjourn the main meeting of the council, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?